right. We can still go. Yay. Okay. Coming up next, if you guys are listening to me, coming up next, we have a young lady that I haven't had the honor of meeting, but her bio made her one of my best friends. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm going to call her Miss Wood because I don't want to mess up her first name. And when she comes up, she can tell me what her first name is. Miss Wood, are you out there?
Oh, yes. Hi, how are you?
I am amazing. Okay, please tell me your first name so I don't mess this up because I don't want your mother to
Sure.
hurt me. I saw her picture.
It's Portia. So hi, nice to meet
Portia.
you. See you.
Okay,
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
thanks so much for being here. You have an amazing resume. And the movement that you guys are creating, you and your mom, is just mind blowing. But you're really doing a lot with minorities and people of color and generational wealth. You know,
Excellent.
that's something I was told that people of color couldn't even have. My mother said, no, you be happy you can pay your rent. Shut up. So can you explain to me, one, as a successful lawyer, what made you decide to even look at this field? Because you could go and do anything in your life you think of. What made you decide to focus on this?
Ooh, that's kind of a long story, right? I was in public relations in college, and
Okay.
I was rear-ended by a drunk driver my junior
Ooh.
year, and I ended up in physical therapy for many months, and I worked in my cousin's civil rights law firm. And they were working on a police brutality case, and I got the opportunity to really dig into that and learn about how the law was being used. And I decided I wanted to give a voice to the voiceless. And so I shifted gears and really focused on how can I be the best advocate for my community? How can we use these legal tools to be able to create an equitable world and make sure that we're being treated fairly? Many of the protests erupted over the course of my time in the
Ooh.
beginning of my career. And
Hmm.
I was on the front lines. You know, my picture ended up on the front page of the New York Times. I was actively involved in what was going on. And I realized there's a lot of people in that space, but nobody was talking about the economic justice side from a generational wealth perspective. And so I started
Wow.
studying it. And from that point on, it's been a passion to really shed light on that area as well.
So what does that mean? What does there's someone watching right now going, I know wealthy people. I see them on the news and I see them on TV. What does generational wealth mean? What does that mean to me?
Generational wealth is opportunity. It's
Okay.
access. People have this idea that it's you've got to have millions and millions of dollars, but
Mm-hmm.
in minority communities, in any community, if you've got a house that somebody owns and you can leave that house to your family to be leveraged, that one property, regardless of where it's located, could fund college education. So now you have kids who are graduating without debt. It could fund businesses that get started. So now you don't have to go through traditional banking models and worry about predatory lending. It could fund the purchase of other real estate. And so, what we don't do, particularly in minority communities, is plan for the inevitability, which is that we will die at some point. 100% of the time, all of us are going to pass away. And what do we do with everything we've worked for?
Right.
70% of African Americans don't have any plan at all for what happens with what they've worked for, regardless of how much it is. And so, if you don't have a plan, that one house may go through a probate process, which means the courts are taking their piece, the attorneys are taking their piece, your creditors are getting their piece, and your family is getting whatever is left over, if anything. And that's an
Hmm.
avoidable process.
So what does the year 2053 mean to you?
Well, there was a study that was done that said by 2053, the median net worth for African American families was set to hit zero. And if it would take another 20 years for Latino families to hit that same result, so 2073. And that was if we did nothing. Now, that study was published in 2017. This was long before COVID-19 came into existence and impacted the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, in 2020 alone, um, 1 in 555 African Americans died as a result of this pandemic. In fact, more than 146,000 children were orphaned as a result of this pandemic just between April of 2020 and June of 2021. 65% of those kids are in minority communities. This is a huge impact on family stability, on wealth transfer, on access, on opportunities, who's raising these kids. It's also created a
Mm.
serious backlog in the court system. So now it's taking even longer to get assets passed that might be left over. And so what we know, there was another study that came out same year that said only 13% of college educated African Americans pass $10,000 or more to the next generation. Get
Wow.
10,000, only 13%, meaning 87% of African Americans with at least one college educated person in their family are not even passing $10,000. We're passing negative wealth. And that is
Wow.
the issue. We cannot close the racial wealth gap if we don't keep what we work for.
Wow. So when you talk about estate planning,
Mhm.
and they are living paycheck to paycheck or barely living paycheck to paycheck, they're going estate planning. Are you kidding me? I have one house and a 5-year-old car that I'm still paying for. I can't think about estate planning. Are you talking to someone who's very, very successful, or are you talking to all of us?
Everyone.
Okay.
Estate planning is not the same, right? So everybody over the age of 18 needs an estate plan. We just don't need the same plan as the next person because our family
Mhm.
structures are different, our asset levels are different, our goals are different, right? So our plans are going to be specifically tailored to us. There
Mhm.
in the African American community specifically, there are a lot of people who were impacted by the war on drugs, right? Which
Mhm.
nowadays people look back and they say, oh, that was really a war on poor and minority communities. Well,
Mhm.
that means 1 in 3 African American males have some contact with the justice system, whether they're incarcerated, on probation, parole, etc. We can talk about that as a criminal justice issue, but it's also a wealth issue because they may
Mhm.
now have back child support from having been incarcerated. They may have restitution issues to the state as a result of whatever their conviction might be. And we don't think about it, but if you leave one house to your 3 kids, unrestricted, unprotected, the state can come in and attach to that child's debts. So
Oh,
if
wow.
that daughter has restitution or child support or any of these other issues coming in, now they can force a sale of the home. And
Wow.
it's not even that it's necessary, right? That people are thinking about it. They're not. They're not thinking about these ancillary issues that are impediments to wealth. They're just thinking, oh, it's going to just get there. And it doesn't. And one of the other biggest issues that we need to think about right now is student loan debt, because so many people have taken out loans to be able to get a higher education to advance in life. But that
Mhm.
debt is also going to need to be satisfied. And for many people, they're on income based repayment, they're on these other programs. But if you inherit a house or you inherit, assets from a family member, your net worth has increased. And you've got to qualify for those programs every single year. So if they charge you more just because you have a higher net worth from an inheritance, all that's going to do is eat up the inheritance,
Mm.
which essentially we've got nothing. So we have to think about what is happening around us so that we can preserve what we have.
This is International Women's Day, and this is our second annual International Women's Day. I want to thank you, Portia, so much for being on it. But I've got to ask you, young women, single moms, young families, I'm going to be 59 this year, 58-year-old, 59-year-old. They're making changes now. They're talking about this is the gig society, blah, 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 blah. And they're going, it's either too early for me to think about estate, generational wealth or estate planning, or it's too late for me to think about that. Is there a target range that they need to be in? Is it ever too early or too late?
Nope. So from the time of 18, right? Once you become a legal adult, that's when you should do estate planning. And your estate plans are going to evolve throughout your life as your life changes. You may get married, you may have kids, you may have grandkids, you may have people who are special needs inside of your family, you may become a caregiver. All of those things are going to impact your planning. If you have breath in your lungs and capacity in your mind, you still have time to do estate planning. The thing about estate planning is that once you need it, it is too late to get it. You have to
Mm.
do it in advance. You have to do it proactively. People think about, they go, well, what's a conservatorship? Britney Spears is probably the most famous conservatorship that we've heard of in recent times. And there was a
Yeah.
Netflix special about it. Everybody knows about it. Well, someone was in control of her money, her property, whether she could work, whether she could get married, whether she could have kids. That's the power of a conservator. And for anybody in society, if you get sick and cannot handle your own affairs, if you haven't picked who makes decisions for you, then the court is responsible for that through a conservatorship. And they get to pick whoever they deem is fit to take care of you. And so estate planning is not just what happens after I die, but how do I live with dignity? And this pandemic showed us that a lot of people at the drop of a dime can end up in the hospital, and someone's got to be legally able to step up. And if you haven't decided who that is, you're stuck with whoever the court picks for you.
Before I shift gears, because we're running out of time and I don't want to run out of time, you're amazing. I want to invite you to come be on the show and we can go deep. But before I shift gears, on your bio, it says there's 3 legal documents everyone should have. What are those 3 legal documents?
Yes. So if you are over the age of 18, the first is going to be your property power of attorney. It is different for different states, right? It might be uniform statutory, but effectively what it is authorizing someone, if you can't make decisions for yourself, authorizing them to access your bank account, to pay your bills, to make decisions for you. The second is going to be your healthcare directives. Again, if you can't make decisions for yourself medically, who is legally authorized to do that for you? What kinds of decisions do you want them to make? Your advanced healthcare directives, and giving them access to your medical records, your HIPAA authorization forms. Those 2 things have zero to do with how much money you have and everything to do with your dignity and taking care of you if you were to pass away. Those are the same for everybody. The third set is going to be your distribution plan. And this is where you see variety. This is what most people think is estate planning. But really, it could be a will, right? As long as that's what's appropriate for your asset levels, your family structure, and your goals. Or it's more than likely going to be some form of a trust. Because what people don't know is that a will still has to be probated. It means it still has to go to court and be judge certified. So all of those fees that come in with going through a court process still come in if you have a will. A trust is really going to be the only thing that avoids a properly funded and created trust is the only thing that's going to avoid that court interference and save all of those fees for a family. So that's your distribution plan. And it will depend on your family structure, on your asset levels, and on your goals. That's what your estate plan is. So those 3.
Wow. Now, before I let you out of the hot seat, I got to ask. It's International Women's Day. You work with your mom. I don't know if this is full time or if you guys, just kind of hang out on Tuesday, but you work with your mom. How do you do that? How is that working out? I mean, some people don't want to go to dinner on Sunday, and you're working with your mom on a regular basis. Tell mom, don't smack me when she sees me. I'm just asking.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. You know what? It's actually amazing because we have such differing perspectives, right? The way that we have interacted with the world as Black women in this society helps us to understand our clients on so many different levels, right? I'm young. I have a 4-year-old son. I'm well versed in cryptocurrencies and what's happening. I'm on the pulse of what's happening right now, and she really understands the baby boomer population. Her community. What are their fears? What are their goals? What are they trying to achieve? And so when we work together, we actually really do a great job of not just caring for her generation, but also planning for my generation and the generations that come after us. So it works really well.
And for young ladies that are watching this, they're going, I want, ESQ behind my name.
Yeah.
Would you recommend going on that journey? And how would you start that journey? Should you be thinking about it when you're 10? When should you be thinking about, I want to be an attorney. I want to change the world. What's going on?
I would say there's a lot of ways to change the world. Law school is incredible, but definitely intern first. I would say find someone who's done it and get a mentor, because as we've seen, the student loan debt crisis is a big one, and lawyers are not immune from that at all. So making sure that you have a clear path and trajectory for what you are trying to do is going to be important. And a mentor. I heard the other guests say it earlier. It's so true. No matter what you do in life, you need someone who's going to help guide you through it. Someone has been there before. Do not reinvent the wheel. Take their successes and failures, internalize them, and then build upon them. And that's really what estate planning is, building on the shoulders of those who came before us.
So I just have 2 more questions. One, you work a lot with Black and Brown community. We know that. We already talked about it, but you also help the LGBTQ plus community, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So is
Yeah.
this the same approach of everything? Generational wealth, estate planning. Is that what you're doing in the LGBTQ plus community as well?
Yes. So it's all about protection, right? At the end of the day, it's about protection. We all get up every single day and we go to work for something, whether it's for
Hmm.
personal comfort, whether it's for our family, whether it's for a legacy, whatever it's for, we have a why. That is our personal why. We also have our family why. And making sure that that's protected is important. For a lot of communities, particularly historically and systematically marginalized communities, the laws do not, the default laws do not protect us. And so we
Hmm.
have to make sure we understand how to work within the legal structure to protect ourselves. And the LGBTQ community is no different, right? Especially people who are partnered but not necessarily legally married, or not domestic partners. They may have a house together. They may have it titled in a way that if something happens to one of them, it goes to that other person's family who maybe doesn't even talk to them or accept
Oh,
them.
wow.
And the partner could be out on the street. And so making sure that the people you love and trust are the ones who are making decisions for you and benefiting from your labor is what estate planning is, right? Because the default could be people you don't know, don't like, don't talk to, or don't, who don't respect you and your choices.
So before I let you go, what does International Women's Day mean to you and mom? Mom should be there. I should have invited her and mom.
Yep. Well, I mean, when we think about International Women's Day, it's about equity. People talk about equality, but the reality is none of us are equal. What we want is equity. We want an opportunity and a fair shot to have our voices heard, to be acknowledged, to live lives that have purpose and meaning and fulfillment and the ability to do so. And so, International Women's Day is just another opportunity for us to continue to beat the drums and sound the horns and say, hey, we're not there yet, but at least let's remind you of the promise.
Well, I thank you so much, Portia Woods, for coming hanging out with us, sharing a little bit of your knowledge. I hope you'll come back and be a guest soon. You're
Absolutely.
amazing. And the information you have, I know my mother's in heaven going, now that's somebody that knows what she's talking about.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to be on this platform. And thank you for all that you do in providing a voice, particularly today for International Women's Day, but all days.
Thank you so much. If you guys want to reach Portia Wood, you know what to do. Go to tigodirect.com, type in Portia, type in Wood. She's going to come up. You're going to see that pretty face just right into the little form, and she'll get it in her inbox. Reach out to her because apparently we should all be thinking about generational wealth and estate planning. I thank you so much for being on, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.